What's up, guys? It's Toad back with you as usual. This is Better Off Dead for Wednesday. I'm only going to have one play today, getting super selective again. Maybe I'm shying away from college basketball a little bit. I have one play in the NBA. The college basketball card tonight isn't as massive as it was yesterday, even though there are a lot of games. I just don't really see any situations that I love as much. I thought it was Wednesdays that were like the more packed midweek college basketball days, but maybe Tuesday is. I forget. I'm not sure. But yesterday wasn't great. It was 2-3. I feel like I'm starting to see the NBA decently though. With the Detroit Pistons, they were winning like that whole game, man. I know it went to overtime. It got close. They almost blew it, but they had the lead most of that game. So luckily that still got there. But that should have been a more easy win the way that game went. And then a couple of the college basketball games weren't that far off. I mean, Sam Houston got blown out, but the other losses weren't that far. Binghamton was in like a couple of scores of being in there. They were close to being within range at the very least. And then Texas A&M Corpus Christi, they were only down 11 with like a minute left, I think, and they wound up losing by 18, I think, something like that. So somehow, I mean, when you're down 11, you stop intentionally fouling, right? I mean, I don't know if they were intentionally fouling or what happened there, but with a minute left, you usually don't allow like that many scores in the final minute if you're just trying to pack the game in. Soon, Nephilim Death Squad. I assume that's the Raven. I'll be going soon. I don't know if there was anything else to say about yesterday's card, but and then I won on the Georgia game. So those like big like heavy favorites in early season, if they're playing against an inferior team who's also like gassed and in a bad spot, have worked out okay for me so far, and that tends to be the case. Although I don't play a lot of those teams, but unfortunately, though, my leans in college basketball seem to be doing all right. The ones that I'm not playing, like I think more than half of them probably have been right so far. So, all right, let's look at the college basketball card for today, where I don't have any plays, and I'm gonna try to run down a few of these games real quick if I can. Just some of the things that caught my eye, maybe some of the ones that were closer to being plays, because we really don't have that many interesting matchups today. Let me see here. I was going to mention the Northeastern game, wherever that is, against Harvard. I think Northeastern is in kind of a weird spot where I would look to fade Northeastern here, because they're coming off a game where they almost beat Princeton, and Princeton has been like the class of the Ivy the last couple of years. They're a good team. So this is a step-up game for a team like Northeastern, who's coming out of the Colonial and isn't as good. Princeton was a 7.5-point favorite in this one at Northeastern. So Princeton came to Northeastern's house, and Northeastern shot out of their minds, basically, 51.6%, but they turned it over way too much. That was to their detriment. They lost the game probably because of that turnover discrepancy. But this shooting percentage also can't be sustainable, and they might be gassed after this, man. They almost pulled off this big upset against Princeton. That would have been a big win for them, a big upset. And then up next, you might be thinking, wait, why am I talking about what they have up next? They're playing Central Connecticut. Who cares? Well, Central Connecticut, I mean, they played a couple of big guys close already this season. They played Providence to within 4, then they beat St. Joe's. So this Central Connecticut team is one of the better teams in the Northeastern Conference at the very least. Still, that maybe is not enough to cause a look ahead from Northeastern, but this is kind of weird because this is one of those like early season tournaments, so they may actually be looking ahead to this more than you would think. This is the Atlantic Slam. It starts in 3 days, and this is in New Brunswick, Canada. I have no idea why, but I guess the Northeast teams go up and play in Canada for whatever reason, even though I don't think the Canadians care about like mid-tier at best college basketball, but I think Harvard would be the play in this one for those reasons. And Harvard probably is actually considering themselves to be the little brother between them and Northeastern now, even though I know Harvard's been kind of in the upper half of the Ivy for a while. But this year, they have not been doing well. And they're coming off kind of an ugly loss to American University. So they're in a spot where maybe they'll turn it back on a little bit and focus on this one more than Northeastern will. And they do have Colorado next, but I don't think that's as much of a look-ahead situation for them. The line has dropped on Northeastern from 5 to 4, and I do agree with that move towards the Harvard side in that one. Let me think about what else I was going to talk about as far as a bunch of these games are concerned. I don't even remember, man. I usually try to get my thoughts in order. And I think, oh, this is interesting. Wake Forest, I will say, is debatably, you could say they're in a sandwich spot. I mean, they're coming off a win over Michigan, which, I mean, it's Wake versus Michigan. I mean, those are teams that almost made the tournament, basically, like the last couple of years, sort of, maybe. But it's still, I mean, you're Wake Forest, you're playing against a Big Ten team, and you get the win. I mean, that's a pretty big win. And now you have to step down in class again and play South Carolina upstate, USC upstate, not to be confused with the other USC. Although I think hilariously, I actually think they're both called the Trojans, even though this USC is, or no, these are the Spartans, actually. I think, whatever. Trojans, Spartans, either way, although one is a condom. And then Wake Forest does have Xavier up next, and that is a bigger game as well against a Big East team, one of the big boys. So this game, at the very least, is sandwiched in between two big boys, but I mean, it is still a mismatch. It's a 26.5-point favorite on Wake Forest there, but like I said, you could argue it's a sandwich spot, and USC Upstate might still step up their game, but they are coming off a game against Virginia Tech, which is another step-up game against another ACC team, but the game wasn't close, and one argument would be that USC Upstate actually has some experience now under their belt this season playing against the big boys, because they've already played NC State and Virginia Tech, so they're not going to be like afraid to play Wake Forest here. So I could see arguments for fading Wake Forest in that one, and they're down from 27 to 26. Not doing it though, but I'm pointing it out. I also realized last night Texas A&M Commerce changed their name to East Texas A&M. I have no idea why. Commerce, I was like, oh, they're a commercial school, but Commerce is actually the name of the town in Texas. But I don't know why these teams keep changing their names to these more boring names, man. East Texas A&M, yeah, whatever. I would say Auburn is in kind of a classic letdown spot. It's just the problem is versus Kent State, is this enough of a mismatch that it won't really matter? Auburn's coming off a big win, dude. I mean, they look good so far, too. They blasted this Vermont team. And Vermont, maybe they're down this year or something, because Vermont also lost to Merrimack. So I don't know. But Auburn, obviously, they're coming off a huge win over Houston. I mean, that's a major win, obviously. That's like win of the season type of thing against one of the top teams in basketball. I mentioned that was the number 1 versus number 2 KenPom matchup there. And Auburn was the number 2. And then they leapfrogged Houston in KenPom's rankings with that win. Huge win. So potentially they could be in a letdown spot. And I think it would be a sandwich spot if they didn't have the stupid game against North Alabama mixed in there. Because if they had to go and play Iowa State, and then Duke right after that, they do play Ohio State coming up in December as well. But if they had one of those bigger games up next, it would be a sandwich spot. And I might be actually really inclined to play Kent State. And of course, this is also not football. This is basketball. So Kent State actually has a competitive program right now in basketball, whereas they do not in football, which I'll mention soon in this video here. Kent State, I mean, they're coming off an easy win over Miami Ham. I have no idea who that is. Miami, Ohio something. Miami Hamilton. I assume that's Miami, Ohio, Hamilton. I don't know, because they're probably playing these lesser Ohio teams, but that's just kind of a game that can help continue your momentum forward into this one. So I do lean to the Kent State side in this one. Auburn's up from 19.5 to 20.5. It does look like money is coming in and driving that up further. I don't know what to say about that, but Auburn, I mean, it's kind of a classic letdown spot for them. And then in the same token, I mean, Houston could arguably be in a hangover spot after playing that Auburn game, coming out of that and having to face Louisiana, who Louisiana is also a fairly competitive Sun Belt team typically. And Louisiana, after losing to Kent State, got their first win against a non-Division I team, but they were able to beat UT Dallas, I guess is who that is. So they might take that momentum out on the road, and it might make sense to maybe look to fade Houston here too. But Houston is way up from minus 24 to 28.5 in that one. I think that's gone too far, though. I mean, that was a big discrepancy with KenPom's rankings. KenPom only has Houston winning this game by 22. And Houston, whenever you're looking at Houston, man, you got to remember, they play one of the slowest paces in college basketball. That's their style, even though crazily they win almost every game, despite the fact that when you slow down the game so much, you're going to be in a lot of closer games. Houston still like grinds opponents down and beats them. They're just so good. on defense and so efficient at scoring that that's what they do. But it also means they're not going to cover a lot of huge numbers like this in a lot of cases because the game is so slow paced that might also mean it makes sense to take the points with Louisiana in that one. And then Arkansas may also be in a similar spot where they're coming off a big step-up game over Baylor where they lost only by 5, and they're having to come out of that and play Troy. So they could be in a hangover spot as well coming off of that. Troy's 2-0, but I'm not sure that they're actually any good. I mean, recently I don't think they have been that good. They're over in the Sun Belt as well. I don't think we can take that much away. I mean, they beat Toledo, though. Toledo's been one of the better MAC teams recently, so maybe that's a decent win there. Winning at New Orleans, I don't know about that. But they should at least probably be focused because they're going to play Arkansas here. Arkansas is up from 12 to 13 in that one, so a little bit less of a huge mismatch as far as the line is concerned than those other games. But just pointing those out, and then I was going to point out a weird